Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's live webinar. We're going to go ahead and get started. Today, we're going to learn a little bit about how you can increase your customer base with great customer service. It's really simple. If you're nice to your customers, they will continue to do business with you, and hopefully they'll tell your friends. And that's where word of mouth comes into play. Today, I have the best expert to talk about this topic. Sam Franklin, who is the CEO and founder at Greenvelope, will tell us a little bit about how having customer service as that centerpiece of your business is really important and how he was able to use word of mouth to grow his company. Welcome, Sam.
Hello, thanks for having me on today.
And just doing a quick introduction, I had already mentioned Sam Franklin, the CEO at Greenvelope, is here to speak with us, and I'm so happy to have him here. My name is Kira Cho, and I'm on the product marketing team here at Desk, and I will be your host for today. Welcome again, Sam.
Thank you.
So even though we know this is a webinar and you can't talk to us directly, but we want to make this an interactive experience. So you can always connect with us via our social channels, Twitter, Facebook, whatever it is. This program is live, so we'll definitely open the floor up for some Q&A after the content. There is a little chat window via the GoToWebinar control panel. Feel free to enter any questions that may come up during the webinar today. We have about 20 minutes of content prepared for you, and the last 10 minutes, like I said, will be dedicated to Q&A. So be sure to enter all your questions in, and we'll address all of them. And lastly, we know you're very busy, and if you have to drop off anytime during the program, that is completely fine. This webinar will be recorded, and we will send you the recording after the webinar. We'll also post it via our social channels so that you can easily access it there. So Sam, tell us a little bit about yourself. You've given me some great stories on how you started Greenvelope, and I'd love for you to share that with the audience.
Absolutely. So I started Greenvelope actually back when I was in university at Washington University in St. Louis. And the inspiration struck when I received a wedding invitation in the mail, traditionally, like in the traditional mail on thick cardstock. And I thought, it seems like for the younger generation, with people that have grown up with technology and email, it seems like this was almost a little bit wasteful that all these wedding invitations that are going out are going to be recycled shortly after. And it seemed like creating this nice traditional experience online would allow hosts to get RSVPs quickly and make it easier for guests to submit their RSVPs, add this information to their calendar. And when I started doing a little research to see if there anything like this existed online, there was really just free services with advertisements on it, which certainly you wouldn't want for your wedding invitation. And so I went about building Greenvelope specifically for the wedding market. It took off very quickly in that market, and we noticed a lot of businesses were actually customizing the wedding invitations for business engagements. And so we realized that business was a big market as well. So recently we've started to move more and more into this whole tool set of event management for sending invitations, tracking RSVPs, collecting survey information, and most recently integrating with tools like Salesforce for businesses to help engage their networks pre and post event. So it's really expanded from that simple idea of a wedding invitation in the dorm room. But
That's awesome. It's nice to see the growth, the continuous growth, and also all the innovation that you have to continue to expand on your product extension. So I know that you had told me in your first job when you were in college, very early on, you learned that customer service should be the number one priority if you want to run a successful business. Tell me a little bit about the philosophy.
yeah, absolutely. My first business actually that was the initial funding for Greenvelope, my first kind of experience creating a business was just before college, actually, the summer before, knocking around on neighborhood doors, seeing if they needed pressure washing services. And I was able to go around one week, get about 10 jobs for the following week, and pressure wash these driveways. But by having a great experience or giving the customers a great experience, by the second week, they were all telling their friends about it, and I no longer needed to go knock on doors. they were having a good experience, and the business was just coming in based on word of mouth growth. So that was kind of my first insight into how um, giving a great customer experience can really be a marketing channel in itself.
Nice. And do you think that's part of that's one of your many core differentiators and it sets you apart from the competitors in the space? Because I would imagine this space is pretty saturated. There's a lot of people that are also doing wedding invitations and online evites and things like that.
Yes, so I think it's definitely our biggest differentiator. None of our competitors you can call on the phone. We now have weekend phone support hours. We have live chat all the time and email support as well. And that's definitely important. If it's your wedding invitation, something isn't just perfect the day it goes out, you need to be able to contact someone anytime immediately. So that's something that from day one we have always done. And like I said, it gets the customers to tell their friends and family about Greenvelope, and that's been a huge growth channel for us.
Great. And so I completely understand what you guys do now. So let's talk a little bit about your support organization and the people that you hire. Even beyond that, just people that are working for your company. So let's start with the support team. How big is your current support team?
We currently have 3 full-time support people, which is definitely uh, interesting that we only have 3 people, and we now have over 2,000 simultaneous hosts creating invitations every day, and we're able to manage that with just 3 people. Desk, the tool that we're talking about today, has really helped us be most efficient. And so as our customer base grows month over month, we really haven't had to increase the support team at all for the past couple of years.
That's great. So later we'll get into the details of how you're using this help desk solution. But before we move on, what do you think are some of the most important qualities in hiring the right people that can help you speak the brand and be an extension of your brand every time when they're on the phone or emailing to customers?
I always kind of in interviews ask people if they have experience with customer service or how they deal with a situation that the customer is upset, and kind of feel people out to see if they have that innate kind of sense of customer service, whether it's sales or designers that we hire, because everybody that interacts with a customer, not just customer service, is representing your brand, and we want to make sure that that's being represented in the most professional way from every department that interacts with a customer. And so one thing that we've done is had everyone read the book Delivering Happiness, which just has, we have a company Kindle that everybody gets when they start, and there's this recommended reading about customer service and the Zappos book. And then everybody, whether they're a manager, they're a designer, they spend a day or 2 days actually on the front lines doing customer service and talking with the customer, because you need to have a pulse and know your customer to be able to develop the product in the best way that's serving them.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that. Here at Desk, we also have our own instance. I'm on the marketing team, but we still respond and listen and be really close to our customers as well. So 100%. Also, I want to let the audience know that this is a live webinar. So if you have any questions, feel free to enter it in the chat box and we'll get to it as soon as possible. So moving on. So Sam, you told me this is a really great story is that when you first started the company, you were literally the only one managing all the customer requests that are coming in. And that must have been very time consuming. Tell me about that experience and how it hindered you from operating your business or doing other things that will continue to move your business forward.
Yeah, so when I first started, we just had a support at greenvelope.com email address and a single email inbox that all the customers were emailing for their support, which worked fine when it was just a few customers. But as soon as we started growing and the volume started increasing, managing or trying to even remember who I had responded to, who I hadn't responded to, what these customers asked last month, became a longer and more tedious process than even answering the question, and it was taking time away from thinking of ways to grow the business. And so that's when I knew that we needed some kind of change.
hmm And that's actually a story that I hear a lot from smaller companies, those that are just getting started with customer service is that they built a great product and then now they're customers. Now what? So I completely hear you, and I've heard that story over and over again. So it's not a challenge that only you are facing, but I believe a lot of folks are facing out there in the space as well. So as your business was growing rapidly, I know you had a strong idea on how you'd like to run your business and put customer in the center of everything. And at the end, you experienced huge success, literally growing from 20,000 users in the beginning when you first started the company in 2011 to now over 250,000 users today. That's huge. I want to give you a round of applause for that. And so, especially when you only have three full-time agents that are helping you with your customer requests that are coming in, how are you ensuring that you're providing your agents with the right tools so that they can churn through cases and work really, really productively?
Absolutely. So I'm always thinking about ways that we can make our agents more efficient, and also kind of instilling that thought process in our meetings with each of the customer service agents. So instead of just kind of putting your head down and responding to the question, every question we think about, is there a way that, or why is this question even being asked? Is there a way to prevent this question or change the software so this question doesn't get asked? Or if it's a question, a very frequently asked question, in our case, if people are like, oh, can you print the invitation? We get that question quite a bit. We're not going to offer printing services because we're all about being green and digital, but we do get that question, and we have a way for the host to save a high-quality print version. And so we have a canned response that just allows us to put kind of a shortcut in that will respond to that. So those cases we can respond to within seconds. So kind of making sure that we have all the canned responses for those frequently asked questions makes us more efficient. And the customer service team's great at communicating with me if we keep getting frequently asked questions and we don't have any kind of automation or canned responses for them, then those get developed. So kind of making sure that communication is clear between people in charge of the frequently asked questions and people that are on the front lines doing the customer service every day.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So, what you just described, the pre-can response, it's what we call macro here at Desk.com. It's a great tool that is provided within their agent console. But essentially, macros are pre-built shortcuts that allow your agents to perform multiple actions with literally just one click. So, in the scenario that Sam just provided, in addition to spitting out a pre-canned response, you can also automatically change the status of the case, maybe append some labels for follow-up later or for reporting purposes. All of that can be automated and be set up in the back end. So what about setting up, Sam? I know you were the one that set up Desk.com, and I don't believe you have extensive customer service experience in the past. So was that really hard to get set up and get up and running?
No, it's really a pretty easy process. You don't need any technical resources or to set it up. Yeah, I think I was all up and running within a day.
Oh, wow, a day. That's super fast in the software world. What about
Yeah.
what about labels? How do you use labels to categorize cases so that you can report on them later on? Can you give me a specific examples of how you're currently using labels?
Yeah, definitely. So one way that we use labels is we have business hours, and we automatically label or tag these cases that come in during business hours versus ones that come in during offline hours, because that allows us then, when we build a report, to see, what's our time to first response, how quickly are we getting back to customers during business hours versus, not on business hours. If that was all combined together, it kind of skew the numbers, because we kind of want to focus on, how fast are we getting back during business hours. So that's one example of ways that we use it. We have a way to categorize our large account VIP accounts, and then when those accounts come into support, they automatically get a higher priority. They get prioritized at the top of the list.
That's great. These are all great productivity tools. And speaking of productivity, I think one of the ways that you're increasing productivity for your agents and also helping deflect cases is the fact that you have a self-service experience. for your customers. And what I have here is a screenshot of your help center that is directly linked to your website. So tell me a little bit about the self-service experience. How do you manage this knowledge base and the value you're seeing?
Oh, absolutely. This has helped us so much in terms of, even when we talked about earlier when I was just starting as a single person doing customer service, as soon as we implemented the knowledge base, the number of cases that came in went down drastically because people want to answer immediately. They want to help themselves. And if they can find an answer from these frequently asked questions within minutes, they'll be happier and they won't email in creating a support ticket that takes time for your team to answer. And so we've invested a lot of time building out these knowledge articles for nearly every topic that people ask about. And we actually make people come to the knowledge base first before submitting a support ticket, so they see that that's available. We have it organized in categories by kind of the flow of the website. So, some getting started questions, some ways to manage the mailing, the details page. So they can go and find particular articles and learn about each topic, or there's a way to search at the top. So if they just know that they want to clone a mailing, they could type that in. The article will pop up with images and step-by-step directions right away. And so that's great for both reducing the number of cases that we get and for our agents to quickly insert these articles into our responses when people ask a question, if they might have missed it in the support center.
That's great. That's a really good best practice. I want to reiterate again is that the fact that you have all this knowledge that is powering your external knowledge base, which is basically your customer experience, and you're trying to help them solve their issues before reaching out to your support agent. All this power, all this knowledge that is powering this knowledge base, your internal agents can also search for it within the agent experience. So you're literally killing two birds with one stone. And I love that because you only have to do it in one place and you don't have to do it in two separate places. That really streamlines your work and also ensures that your agents are always saying the right and accurate information every time when they get back to the customers.
Exactly. And one other thing that's probably worth mentioning is you can create public and private articles. So if there's something maybe people ask about your competitors, you don't necessarily want that front and center on the actual public version. You can have private articles that only your support agents have access to when they respond to questions. So we use that a lot as well.
Yeah, that's a great point. Or if you have, let's say, a new product release that just came out and there might be mini bugs or things that other people have encountered, but you don't want to make that public, you can also have it just searchable by your agents internally so that your agents always have the most up-to-date information. So that's a really, really good point. Sam, thanks for all the best practices. I know building a help center is a little tough. There's not a lot of information on how to build it and what the best practices are. So I'm really glad you were able to share that with us.
Yeah, absolutely.
And to wrap all of this up, I know that you can't improve if you don't measure on things, and things change really quickly in your company. So you really need to have all these reports that can tell you exactly how your customer service is performing, the health of your support organization, and maybe what are some of the types of issues that your customers are reaching out to you about. So tell me a little bit about Business Insights, which is Desk.com's reporting tool, and how you use some of these pre-configured reports to make actionable business decisions.
So the Business Insights is something that we started using pretty recently, and I can't tell you how much, as you said before, if you're not measuring it, it's not getting managed. If you don't kind of have these expectations of where we're at and ways to improve, then it's hard to really improve those different key performance indicators. And so a few months ago, we started implementing a weekly customer service meeting where we would look at these metrics provided by Desk. And a few of them are, the average handle time. How much time are we taking on different cases? What's our first time to first response? How quickly are we getting back to customers? And what's our first response resolution? How often are we actually solving customers' query the first time that they ask, because that, people don't like to have to make 4 or 5 interactions to actually get their answer. So these are all things that kind of help us ensure that we're providing the best possible support. And just to give you a little example along those lines of when we started looking at it, I think our average handle time was about 15 minutes per case. We didn't have as many of these shortcuts in place, and now our average handle time is down to about 3 to 5 minutes. And that just kind of shows, this graph is actually shows our cases over time, and you can see every month our traffic and our number of users is just growing exponentially, but our number of cases has stayed pretty consistent because we're responding, we're answering questions quicker, we're changing the product so that we don't have as many questions on certain things, and we've maintained consistent customer support even though our traffic goes. And just having the insight to know this right at our fingertips is very helpful.
This is great. Yeah, and this is actually an actual screenshot from your instance of Business Insights. So this is real data, and I love seeing this stuff. And besides the traditional service KPIs that you had just mentioned, average handle time, time to first response, I know that these are great metrics to help you figure out top line what exactly is happening at any given time. But do you think that a support manager should only care about these top line metrics, um, especially if you're trying to create a great customer experience and making sure that your customers are loyal and that they're coming back to you, and this becomes like a life cycle question? Do you think these KPIs uh, are the only ones that you should look at?
I think they're very important, but I think they're really only part of the picture. I think you need to be doing well in these KPIs, and they're almost like a prerequisite for decent customer service. But if you really want to have great customer service, there's a qualitative element as well. So for example, you could be answering a question very spot on and correctly, but if your agent is rude, that's going to reflect well on, your KPIs. Your time to first response is going to be good, but that's not necessarily reflecting well on your business as a whole or making a happy long-term customer. And so it's important to kind of look at the way the answers are being, or way the answers we're answering questions, as well as just, how quickly we're answering them. Yeah. And so one way that we've started to kind of think through that is every week I have a meeting with the customer service agents, and I'll kind of spot check 10 to 15 different cases, open them up, put them on our presentation screen, and say, what are ways we could, answer this question the same way, but improve, the professionalism of it or improve the response. And we're just every week getting better and learning new little ways to, make sure that we're being represented in the most professional way.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I completely 100% agree. So, Sam, thank you so much for spending the past 30 minutes with us. We learned so much from you. I know I learned a lot, and I know that the audience also got a lot from this session. And, today we really explored how crucial it is to put customer service in the center of everything that you do. So I know you have some parting wisdom that you'd like to share with our audience. If I were to ask you, please give us one piece of advice for those that are just starting out with customer service. What do you think that advice would be?
I would say really just focusing from the beginning on creating a foundation for thinking through efficiency and, not necessarily how are we going to keep our customer support relatively consistent as we grow, and encouraging the customer service agents, and all starts with hiring, is to think through these problems when they come in. Is there a way that we can prevent this question? Is there a way that we could respond to this quicker? Can we create a new knowledge-based article so that this question isn't asked? And kind of always thinking through efficiency would be my advice.
Mm-hmm. I love it. Well, for those of you that have any questions that you'd like to ask Sam, I feel like I've exhausted the number of questions I can ask you today, Sam. So feel free to enter it into the chat panel. It looks like people are pretty quiet, so that's completely okay. We are here for you even after this webinar is after it has ended. So you can always submit your questions to support@desk.com. If you have any questions, we'll be sure to get back to you. And thank you again, Sam, for your time today. I really learned a lot, and I know all of our audience did as well.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on today. I've enjoyed it as well.
Yeah, and just lastly, if those folks want to check out what Greenvelope is, tell me where I can find information about that.
The best way would be to go to greenvelope.com, greenvelope.com, and we offer personal invitations as well as business.
Great. So we have actually a couple of questions trickling in. I'm really glad. So the first one is, were there any challenges of having a small team that you were able to overcome?
I think kind of goes back to thinking about efficiency from the beginning and instilling that process. So the fact that we had the knowledge base in place before traffic really picked up and before we grew was really helpful to make sure that when we started getting more and more customers, we had everything in place to be scalable. So I think if we didn't have Desk in early and we were trying to kind of always be playing catch up and getting behind in our customer service, people aren't having as good of an experience, they're not telling their friends about it, that would have hurt us from the beginning. So the fact that I guess, took the initiative to get this installed early, even when it was just me and just one person, was helpful to kind of position us for growth later on.
That's a great one. And also having someone dedicated or like a technical writer that can write help articles so that you can put them on your help center and help to deflect cases. I think that's also a very important element in getting started,
and
especially when you have a small team, right?
Yeah, one other thing I thought of is that I know I used to, every single customer that called, I'd spend, 2 hours on the phone with them and do the entire process for them, and quickly realized that that wasn't scalable and that we were spending 90% of our time with, 2% of our customers. And kind of the ability to still provide great customer service, but not necessarily do everything for someone, because then whenever they have a question, they're going to call in and they're going to stop kind of helping themselves. And so now what we do is we kind of say, we're going to show you the answer. We're going to kind of walk you through doing it on yourself and show you that, this system's easy. If you put the effort into it, you'll be able to, be very successful with it. And kind of just, there's a way to help customers, but not necessarily do everything for them and then have them rely on calling you every time they want to make a small change. So kind of thinking through that as well, I think was helpful and something that we need to learn pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's about empowering your customers, right? In these help articles, you don't just have to use text and words. You can also articulate the solution to a problem via images, or maybe have a demo video. All of those are available at your disposal to better help your customers figure out the answer. So the second one is, as a customer service rep, how do I make changes to make our customer service experience better? That's a great question.
I think the more that there's a few things that makes customers happy, and those are kind of shown with those KPIs. How quickly, time to first response. I know, most people get used to being responded to within 24, 48 business hours online, and that's just become the norm, sadly, in a lot of online businesses. So when you can respond to someone within 30 minutes, they are ecstatic, and they're like, oh my gosh, you got back to me so quickly. It's made a happy customer for life. So figuring out how you can implement a system where you get back to customers quickly. And then also, customers don't like to have a lot of interactions, as I mentioned before. They don't want to have to, ask their question and then have you ask them to clarify their question. We always try to kind of put ourselves in the customer's shoes and kind of understand what they're asking or questions that they might have 2 minutes later, and answer all those questions at once. It's called solving adjacent issues. So say someone emails us asking about how they change the font of their card, and we know that 90% of the time people will also have questions about changing the spacing 10 minutes later, because that's the next step of the process. So we might, in our single response, say, here's the way to change the font. And also, I know you'll be getting to changing the spacing at the next step. I think this article would be really helpful. And now we've eliminated our customer service because they're not going to email back in 5 minutes later when they get to that step. And they're also happy because we're kind of helping them be efficient as well, and everybody likes to be efficient all around. So thinking through adjacent questions is always helpful, and just thinking thoughtfully about all the questions that come in instead of how can I just respond as quick as possible.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Well, thank you everyone for all your engagement and all your questions. We're actually at the top of the hour. So once again, Sam, thank you for being our guest speaker for today. And for those of you that would like to learn more about Desk.com, the tool that helps Greenvelope manage their customer request, feel free to visit our website, www.desk.com. You can also download a free trial and just try it out for 2 weeks. Again, if you have any more questions after this webinar, feel free to send them to support@desk.com. Thank you everyone for your time and have a great day.